Bitcoin's alive, what you gonna do? Mempool fees are high. Ordinal. Where does it stop? Nobody knows. It's a revolution, ayy. Bitcoin is the one, no substitution, ayy. With Shizzy and Yagobi, it's Ordinal Revolution.
Welcome back to Ordinal Revolution. My name is Shizzy. On this channel, we cover the entire Bitcoin Ordinal ecosystem. What is up, guys? We have an amazing show for you guys today. We're live with an interview with the core contributor of Fractal. We got Spencer Yang today. Very big name in the Fractal space. I'm really looking forward to this. Looking forward to it for a long time. Learning about Fractal and really digging into his background and what Fractal is going to be, right? We all see what's going on with Fractal, but the future and kind of like the roadmap is really important and something that we don't really see here too much in the West. So we definitely want to bring that to you guys and really looking forward to learning all about it. But without further ado, let's bring in my partner here, Mr. Yagobi. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man?
What's up, man? So for anyone who doesn't know, could you explain what is Fractal?
Yeah, so Fractal is a pretty much it's a fork of Bitcoin, right? Like, but with some added features, right? Opcat was added to it, right? And so it's a UTXO chain, and it was really, from my understanding, and we'll get confirmation once Spencer jumps up, but it's really kind of created to be able to scale some of these layer one assets, and also just add different features, right? And make things more flexible that we can't really have on layer one Bitcoin with the limitations there. So really love it. I love the speed of the blocks, right? That's something that we weren't used to. And once we were able to test it out, it was amazing. And they're adding to it, right? With this new token standard as well, like Cat 20. So that's very interesting. And I think it's really exciting for the future of Fractal.
Yeah, man. And to your point, I'm over there a lot. I've been trading Glizzy. It's fun in the pizza swap and everything with that. So Shizzy trading Glizzy. But when you get used to these really fast 30-second block times, it's hard to go back to Bitcoin sometimes, right? So it's like me and you were doing the tutorial earlier. We're like, oh, we gotta wait a 30-minute block. You just gotta remember that, you know what I mean? When you come back, you gotta brace yourself to come back. So
yeah, no, exactly. Like a long block on Fractal is like 3 minutes, but a long block on Bitcoin's 30, right? So it's a big difference there. But I think it was needed, and in my opinion, it's kind of like it kicked off this UTXO ecosystem, this Bitcoin's ecosystem, right? Because I've talked about, in previous live streams and episodes with you about how I really truly think that the narrative is going to be this Bitcoin ecosystem, but UTXO kind of chain ecosystem. And it's a run back kind of from the playbook of the EVM of 2020, 2021, except for UTXO. So really exciting. I can't wait to see, what comes of this.
yeah, you're right. So people are comparing Fractal to the BNB of Ethereum, right? So if Fractal could be the BNB to Bitcoin, that would be absolutely insane. But without further ado, let's bring in Spencer Yang. Welcome to Ordinal Revolution, Spencer.
Hey, Yagobi, hey, Shizzy. What's up, everyone?
What's going on?
So we can't wait to dig into Fractal, but I kind of want to learn about you, if you don't mind. If you can kind of take us back to your early days and kind of lead us up to your crypto journey.
Awesome. Yeah, super awesome to be here on the Ordinal Revolution show. Of course, been following along this show for a while now, and just really awesome to come on for this episode. Yeah, and I've been in crypto myself for about 7-8 years. But even before crypto, I was actually building tech companies. I actually started, really randomly about 14 years ago, a digital art platform. I think that was like before digital art was cool. And then fast forward maybe like 3-4 years later, I went down the AI rabbit hole in 2014, 2015, started an AI chatbot company. Of course, at the time, we don't have LLMs and so on. So no great, ChatGPT, cloud kind of stuff. But we definitely spend a lot of time actually, talking to enterprises, talking to customers, talking to users, and building some of the more popular bots in the Asia region at the time. I remember I was actually co-working at this co-working space in Singapore. And then I think I was just looking around who was also working with me, right? There was this person who was like pretty tall, skinny dude who was just like coding on his computer all day. Turns out he's Vitalik Buterin. And then there's also like many other people in the co-working space at the time in 2016, 2017. And that's kind of how I got more in touch with crypto by talking to many of the people who work in that space. And then in 2017, I jumped into the crypto industry. I started out first by building, helped to build a company called Kobo, which focused on custody and wallets back in the day. So I was one of the early employees at the time, leading up the international growth for the company. And then thereafter, I left to start my own company, and it was acquired by CoinMarketCap. So at CoinMarketCap, I led growth, revenue, and operations across the business globally. And of course, we were acquired as a company by Binance back in 2020 now? Oh my God, it's 2020, yeah. And then thereafter, I joined. Thereafter I joined Coinbase and I led products for wallet, derivatives, and also security tokens. It's been some time really, at the intersection of I would say data platforms, crypto information, and also non-custodial products and so on. I think that's kind of what really attracted me to the NFT world, many of these other things. Back in 2018, even when CryptoKitties was looking to launch globally, a small firm that I started actually helped CryptoKitties to launch their products globally. So that was kind of when I first got in touch with non-fungible tokens, collectibles, all that kind of good stuff. And then I think over the past year or so, I've really spent my time back in Bitcoin, and I think that's really brought us to start Fractal as a project between the Blockspace Force team as well as the Unisat team. So as the core contributors to Fractal, we I think span across quite a bit of experience in the space, and really want to try to bring that to kind of the ethos we are building, which is to help scale and improve Bitcoin overall.
Wow, that's
Amazing.
an extensive experience resume right there. That's awesome. I had no idea that you had that much experience. I knew that you had some, but wow, you pretty much touched every, part of the space, in terms of CoinMarketCap, that's data, Coinbase, obviously large centralized exchange and all that stuff. So, leading up to, where you decided, okay, Fractal is something that I want to be a part of. I want to, be a part of this innovation. What was it hard for you to say, okay, I'm going to, take this on, because that's a big deal. Like those other experiences were also big, but a chain, taking on a chain yourself, that's a big deal.
Yeah. To a point, it's super daunting, right? To take on the challenge of building a whole ecosystem. It's so many things, right? I think in my experience in crypto, at least, I've spent a lot of time talking to founders who've essentially built very successful ecosystems, right? I think I was also part of companies and ecosystem players. They essentially push the industry forward in many different ways, right? So I think when I sat myself down last year, amidst some of my personal reflections that I do every year, I asked myself really what is it that I really want to contribute to in crypto for the next 7 years, right? Or 10 years, or for that matter. But I use 7 as a benchmark because I've been in crypto as of last year, I guess, for 7. So it's one of those things where you kind of reflect on it and you're like, okay, what do I do next, right? And I think that was really the moment where I was like, hey, I think it's very important to work with like-minded people, people who share similar values, and also to try to foster an ecosystem together in a very, very meaningful way, right? And I think I didn't know at the time what the answer could be, but I think as we started, and as with most things, right, early days when you guys started this podcast, I'm sure you also kind of felt the same way. Where hey, you had an idea that this could work, but you didn't actually know, n number of episodes in, that it's going to be what it is, right? So similarly, I think I had an idea of what I wanted, but I had really no idea that it was going to result in Fractal, for that matter, right? And I think as we started building, Fractal as a project, there was just so many components that we felt were just natural pieces that kind of fit together, like a very nice jigsaw, very much essentially a Jenga tower that doesn't fall, right? That's kind of what it feels like sometimes. And when you are kind of interacting and also working on the ecosystem stuff, working on infrastructure, working on staying relevant in the industry, because the industry is so fast changing, then that's kind of where you feel very alive, right? For that matter. So I think that's kind of the I guess the zone that I do enjoy it.
Yeah, 100%. Could you kind of explain the team and the members and how that works and everything?
Yeah, for sure. But perhaps maybe I can give you a bit of a introduction on Fractal as well. But yeah, for the team side of things, we are essentially comprises of two core contributor groups. One is of course the Unisat team, and Unisat, as you know, as a company and as a team, has built various infrastructure products, non-custodial wallets, and various awesome stuff in the Bitcoin ecosystem for a very, very long time. And I think specifically over the past year, I think a lot of the products that have launched have really helped the community to grow and improve their user experience, and also improve the I guess the availability of what's possible, right? And I think it's really because of the experience of the Unisat team that we had this core insight of essentially that, hey, the Bitcoin, I think in December 2023, last year, there was just so many pending transactions on the Bitcoin block space that it was just ridiculous, right? So, we knew at the time that, hey, it was not sustainable to go on. And of course, we want to present essentially practical solutions that could help the community to be able to rally around certain things, right? And also because of the sort of the background that we have in terms of understanding the ordinals theory, ordinals protocol, BRC20s, and also some of the upcoming ones like runes at the time. I think we had an idea of essentially what could make sense, and wanted to just kind of put our work out there in a certain way, right? And on the block space 4 side, really, the three partners on the block space 4 side, we've all had experience building companies like CoinMarketCap, and Coinbase, like myself, and also like interesting ecosystem project of VeChain and so on back in the day. So we kind of know exactly, I think with the combined sort of like skill sets, we kind of know what we were looking for in terms of like, making sure that we start an ecosystem and project from zero, right? And that's kind of how we started really jamming on the idea of Fractal. And then with Fractal, I think where we are today, since we've launched on mainnet in September 9th of 2024, is that we are really projecting out a project now that essentially is a Bitcoin scaling solution that is one of the most native ones in the space, right? So we essentially use the Bitcoin core software itself to recursively scale unlimited layers. Of course, we only have one layer right now, but we will look to have multiple layers in the future. And essentially, we want to keep as close as possible compatibility with the Bitcoin core principles and also infrastructure. So Fractal is not a fork, and we really want to honor Bitcoin itself in the way that we sort of design the system, right? So it's a system really that really tries to help scale Bitcoin. And then if you think about some of the things that we have essentially introduced, there's like a few pieces, right? One is when it comes to the user experience, as you guys have mentioned earlier, it's designed to be really like fast and also very native. So users can essentially switch their, for example, on their OKX wallet or on the Unisat wallet, they're able to just switch their networks from Fractal to, from Bitcoin to Fractal quite easily. Right. And once they do that, it's almost like, if you're on Ethereum or if you're on other ecosystems, if you've done it in the past, I'm not sure if you tried that, but essentially when you're switching networks, it's just as simple as that, right? It's almost like, when you're a Mac and you're switching between user profiles, that's kind of what it is, or like a different Chrome tab or the Chrome profile, right? For that matter. So that's kind of what we aspire the user experience to be, to make it easy for users to be able to switch from one to the other. And also if I send, Fractal to your, Bitcoin sort of native SegWit address, or Taproot address, you will be able to see it once you, sort of like change your network as well. And I think that's one of the core ethos that we wanted to be as Bitcoin aligned as possible in that matter. And then the second thing is really around the mining side, right? When it comes to the mining mechanism, Bitcoin is proof of work, right? We've seen some other projects, of course, move away from that, for a variety of reasons. But we feel that for the Fractal project, we really wanted to make sure that Bitcoin miners are also able to have some skin in the game, right? Which is why in the mining mechanism, we actually have this mechanism called that we call cadence mining. Essentially, 1/3 of rewards, block rewards on average, will go to essentially merge mining, and then 2/3 of rewards on average will actually go to permissionless mining, right? So right now, I think on the merge mining piece, about 50 to 60% of Bitcoin hash rates are merge mining Fractal, which we are quite excited to see. Just the amount of like support, I think like major pools have all sort of essentially integrated with Fractal, and that's really awesome, right? We honestly didn't expect this level of enthusiasm and support from the mining community, and it's great that I think they are helping to secure the network now, right? And then on the permissionless mining side, definitely is an opportunity cost, right? Because using the same hardware, the miners are also able to mine Bitcoin as well with that hardware. So they're essentially choosing to mine Fractal in that sense to contribute economic security, and we're really pleased to get a certain amount of hash rates, a pretty decent amount mining Fractal as well. So in totality, on the mining side, if you think about it from a network security side, Fractal has a very, very strong network security, which is what we wanted to design for from the beginning, and we're pretty glad to actually achieve that. And then the third piece is really when it comes to building applications and stuff and interesting things, right? I think the developer experience is something that we definitely know that is quite lacking, right? Whether it's on Bitcoin or whether it's on Fractal, it's just so much more that you can do, right? For example, if you're a developer today and you're developing, let's say, an app that you want to launch, you can use Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and so on, and you're able to spin up a lot of those things quite easily right now, right? In fact, you don't have to think about managing your infrastructure. You don't have to think about a lot of things, and there's so much APIs that you can use right now if you're developing, let's say, a travel booking site or whatever, right? In the traditional Web2 world. I think in Bitcoin specifically, and let's not talk about the rest of the crypto industry, but in Bitcoin specifically, if you're looking to build an application today, it's just really difficult or sometimes not possible, right? Given the constraints and so on, which is why on the Fractal side, we wanted to make it practical for developers to try to build applications. And also we asked the community, hey, if they wanted to enable certain opcodes like OPCAT, re-enable OPCAT on Fractal, and we've received a very resounding sort of vote to approve that, right? Which is why we enable OPCAT, and also we have been spending a lot of time working with developers even on our own, right, to develop applications like PizzaSwap, Simple Bridge, and so on, to essentially showcase what's possible. And I think we will also in our roadmap, and I can share more about that later, to try to improve the developer experience and show even more examples for the community going forward. That's kind of Fractal, and also where we're thinking about things at a high level in a nutshell.
Yeah,
wow,
that's awesome.
Amazing.
You brought up. Go ahead, Shizzy. I was going to say you brought up OPCAT. That's been a huge topic, right? I'm curious. Are you guys considering adding any other opcodes, like maybe OPCTV or any other ones that could make it even more flexible?
Yeah. Candidly speaking, we have definitely been following along the community discussion, right? I think at the moment, our team is just really studying the various proposals. We spend a lot of time just diving into the IPs and so on that people have been talking about. I know there's some conversations about OPCTV. There's also some new conversations. I know Robin Linus just also tweeted about, how, maybe some other opcodes could be meaningful and so on. I think we really respect the Bitcoin consensus process. And we are not experts in that, of course. But based on what I'm seeing right now, it feels like the community consensus is still developing, and OPCAT definitely still have a bit of a sort of a head start, right? I think which is why we asked our community about OPCAT in the first place. I think for this layer of Fractal, we would definitely will probably. And it's very unlikely for us to support additional opcodes because that actually breaks. If it's, for example, a net new opcode, it actually breaks Bitcoin compatibility, and it's essentially a soft fork, right? Essentially, right? So I think there's definitely some issues over here that we have to be considerate of, and we have to respect the community as well. So I think that's something that I think we are a lot more conservative on, in that regard. But honestly, the issues and the interesting thing about Bitcoin and crypto is that discourse and discussions can change very, very quickly. So I think we are paying attention to that. And for example, in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year or so, if some of those discourse changes, then maybe when we chat more about it later on, we can have a more educated answer to that question.
Awesome.
Yeah. Wow. I kind of what you said something about Fractal being layers. Could you kind of explain that a little further?
Yeah. So I think in the so I think the question is around Fractal having multiple layers, right? So I think in programming we have this concept of recursion, right? Recursiveness, where essentially the layers kind of reinforce each other and kind of stacked on each other. So that's kind of really the I think, to put it very bluntly, I think we are really inspired by the software sort of the software programming principle of recursiveness, and I think that's kind of why we thought that this could actually work, right? Definitely, there's many contingencies on that, right? For example, in our technical light paper, we talked about this concept of an elevator where assets and value can transfer between the different layers very, very seamlessly. Candidly speaking, that's still something that we need to spend a lot more time researching and engineering on to be able to make this a lot more, of course, there's a few paradigms, right? One is as trusted as possible, where users don't have to essentially trust that it's a trusted setup and an actor to essentially manage this, right? I think that's something that requires a lot more research and engineering on our end. And I think we will share more details in our roadmap as well when we have some of those things in there, right? The second thing I think is really in terms of like what are the assets you want to support, right? I think as we displayed with like Simple Bridge and also like this other reference implementation and implementation by the Blue Bridge team, you can see that right now Bitcoin can exist on Fractal as BBTC or SBTC, right? I think that's just the beginning. There's so many other assets on mainnet and so on and Fractal that can be a lot more seamless in transfers. I think we've seen some of those frustrations on other crypto networks, right? For example, if you look at this network, of course, that some of you might be familiar with, Ethereum and the other layer 2s on that ecosystem. There's like so many layer 2s and Ethereum right now that asset transfers can be quite cumbersome. You can have like, let's say, a stable coin, a USDC on some of those networks, and it just doesn't really cross between each other. And that's bad, right? It's really bad experience for the users because the users are just like, what is going on? So I think on the Fractal end, at least when we are looking at designing this product, from a research, engineering, and also user experience perspective, we want to make sure that it's as seamless as possible. And I think that's really, really core to the recursive layers concept. And of course, each recursive layer can have, their own sort of like way of like thinking about things. It's almost like a virtual world, right? If you have played, for example, like, MMORPGs before, you would be very familiar with the idea of virtual worlds within the broader ecosystem, right? And I think that's kind of how we were inspired by it as well. If let's say, for example, a very, very large gaming company or very large social company, social media company or whatsoever, once you actually build on Bitcoin, they can work on Fractal to be able to use one of those recursive layers or concepts and so on to be able to architect their world, right? And I think that's kind of where we are moving towards in terms of developing this stack further.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's like a developer's dreamland, I would say, right? To kind of prep, be able to prep before actually building it on Bitcoin. And so, like, one of the things I talked about earlier was like this UTXO kind of new ecosystem kind of building off of Bitcoin. It's like, this is Bitcoin's term for this bull cycle. Do you see that as well?
Yeah. So I guess you're talking about the UTXO model being, and also Bitcoin being a like very important part of this like bull cycle, right? I think there's quite a few things over here, but we'd love to let you unpack the question a little bit too, if you want.
Yeah. So I guess, last in 2020, 2021, there was like this EVM kind of, ecosystem boom, right? You had a bunch of L2s. And I think that a lot of people are trying to stay away from like so many L2s, but do you feel like that's what's happening for the UTXO side? This board?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point. I think like if you ask any of us about a year ago, we would not have expected this, right? I think a year ago at this time, there was just like not that much innovation. I won't say innovation, but not as much like connection between Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto ecosystem that was being pushed on, right? It almost felt like it's a sudden kind of moment where we had overnight, so many different projects, teams, talented people, individuals building on Bitcoin. Right. I think it's one of those things where I think that's very important. Like some of the early signals, early projects that had some level of success really helped to inspire more confidence among, the whole ecosystem, right? And I think the ecosystem includes like regular users, includes like investors, includes developers and so on, right? For the entire supply chain to kind of work, I think that everything is kind of important, right? Like even when we started out explaining what we wanted to build on Fractal earlier in the year or end of last year, many people didn't understand, why we wanted to build on Bitcoin using Bitcoin software. Right? They were like, hey, why don't we just use, the EVM stack or Solana virtual machine or whatsoever? And I think just because we've built in Bitcoin before, for quite a while, we knew the trade-offs here, right? That we are going into, which is of course sometimes good and sometimes bad, right? So I think overall, I definitely like that. To answer your question, I really like that there's a lot of different implementations now that people have been shepherding on, and also there's a lot of investments and attention paid to the space. I think that's good, right? As with anything, when it's a rush, I think if you look at the Gartner hype cycle and many of these things, usually when there's a rush, there's a lot of projects that get created, for better or for worse. And then I think the community will almost very brutally be honest and vote on which, using their funds or using their attention or using some things, the ones that they actually feel should continue to exist, right? Of course, as a founder, as a team member, you can have this like sheer will of power to try to like push this agenda forward. But ultimately, the community has to care about it, right? And I think over time, I think the community will start converging on some of these ones that are more differentiated, and I think that's already happening, right? Over the past couple of months or so. So I think it's a process of maturity, and I'm really happy that the Bitcoin ecosystem is now undergoing this right now.
Yeah, amazing. I guess my next question would be, for Fractal to become like a DeFi chain or anything like that, you kind of need a smart contract, and with a smart contract, you need smart contract language. Have you guys settled on a preferred language yet? Is script that language?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think in terms of building on Bitcoin and also building on Fractal itself, definitely there's a lot of I guess standards and also limitations, right? I think one of the limitations essentially comes to this concept of the domain-specific language, which I think you mentioned, the script, which uses try to use TypeScript to essentially compile that into code that can run on the network itself, whether it's on testnet or mainnet. I think where we're seeing is that I think as an ecosystem, we definitely want to see more and of course deeper investments by these sort of platforms and teams. So I think script being one of them, we definitely would love for them to support Fractal even more natively. I think right now the script platform is built on by protocols like Cat20 and Cat721, which is really nice. It is a little bit hacky if you look under the hood on some of the way that Cat20 actually used script and Cat721, because it's just different teams, right? I believe. So I think that's the reason why it has to be a little bit hacky. I would of course love for script to be supporting Fractal even more natively, right? And of course, the team has also been studying that and also understanding that, so that'll be awesome. On top of that, I think we would love to see even more teams actually develop easy ways for developers to build on Fractal itself, right? So for example, many developers are not, of course, most developers know TypeScript today, right? Because they're building stuff in JavaScript and so on. That's become almost like a standard that's very, very popular. Solidity is also in terms of writing Solidity on Ethereum. It's also very similar to that, right? But it's a lot of other programming paradigms and languages that people use that are arguably better or worse in those regards, right? Depending on who is actually using those tools, right? And I think we want to also see more support for those kind of like programmers, maybe Rust developers, C++, Python, Go, whatsoever, right? And have some of these and see some of these sort of mechanisms and tooling be available for developers as well. So that's something that I think we will hope to see more of going forward. But fundamentally, I think we're not, I think where we draw the line really is, are we developing on Bitcoin script itself, right? And I think that's where we're interested in using, like, for example, the opcodes, like OPCAD and so on. I think those are important. And we want to really try to also encourage developers building on Fractal to be as innovative as possible in understanding, Taproot script, all these kind of things as well, and the Bitcoin nativeness of it, right, which is really nice. So I think it's almost like a fine wine where you acquire a taste after a while, and it's I think it takes a special kind of person to be interested. I think we are gathering a small community of very special people, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think is unique to like the meta protocols that were built on Bitcoin in this Bitcoin renaissance the past year and a half, is like there's so many different ones, and there isn't like a consensus of just one thing, right? You have BRC20, you had runes, and you had like ARC20, all these different things. And then even on Fractal, it's kind of like still kind of figuring it out. But if you look at Ethereum, you have Solidity, you look at Solana, you have Rust. Do you think that like with Bitcoin and Fractal, they're going to come to like one language consensus, or it's okay for us to have different meta protocols that live on these chains?
Yeah. I think it's like almost like a meme, right? Where someone, like looks at a standard, like a programming language, and it's like, hey, there's like one thing I can do better. And then the person may try to introduce it to the community, and the community is like, no, go away, right? And then the person is like, all right, let me create a new standard, right? And that's how a new standard is born, right? So like, I think there are many times when people try to improve certain things, and that's kind of how programming works, right? You try to build on each other's like innovations and stuff, and then you create a lot of these branches, which is cool, right? So I do think that if you think about it, many of these ideas and protocols implementations like runes or BRC20s, for example, just to take two of these examples, right? Maybe if you include Cat20 in there, I think they all have their own trade-offs. They all have their own like communities right now, and I think the community, of course, is not like very like 1 or 0, right? It's very much like spans across everything, right? So I think as long as the community actually finds that these protocols are catering to their needs when they're minting, when they're doing some things, or whatever ethos that they're interested in, then I think there's a room for them to exist, right? So I think on our end, at least, like it's kind of it definitely adds a lot of engineering complexity, because when we build products, we build across like support across all 3 or 4 or n number, right? So I think we also are leaning on the community members to sort of like, hey, what do they care about and so on, and we try to prioritize accordingly, right? As I say in software prioritization, if you are not like feeling the pain when you're prioritizing, you're really not prioritizing, right? So I think we definitely feel some pain when we are like, adding support or timelines for these protocols. We're like, okay, you know what? Sometimes people are going to be pissed off. People are going to like hate us for it, but we just have to do it, right? Because we have limited resources. Yeah, that's a reality. So I think to answer the question, like, do I want to see more or less protocols, or like where do I think this is going? Honestly, I think at the end of the day, if the community likes this idea of more it is, right? We just have to work harder on our end. But if the community is like, hey, we only care about one, then okay, fine. It just makes it easier for us.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, it's wild, because I remember like we were really, really excited for Pizza Swap, right? And then there was a little bit of delay. And then so we were kind of like, oh, well, Pizza Swap isn't what we thought it was going to be. And then all of a sudden, like a week and a half ago, Pizza Swap's amazing now. Like everybody, like now everybody's like all about it, and they're like adding liquidity. And Shizzy's telling me, man, I love how the experience is swapping on Pizza Swap. And I was like, I thought you were so bullish on Cat 20. He's like, well, I am, but like Pizza Swap is available now, and they made it better. And so, that's
because you can withdraw.
Yeah, well, adding the withdrawal obviously helps a lot, but like, so now you have like Pizza Swap that's kind of developed, and then you have the Cat 20 marketplace. So do you look at these two as competitors, or kind of just, I know you answered kind of that question, but like, those are two kind of driving like standards and now platforms.
Yeah, I would say like standards inherently have a bit of competition, because it's all like backed by a community of people, right? And I think people love competition. Like I think maybe an anecdote is like when I was running CoinMarketCap, right? If you notice, like people are very like community driven or like almost sometimes like too passionate about their beliefs, right? And as a result, you have people like sort of like talking over each other. Like for example, maybe like the Cardano community and the Ethereum community like scold each other or whatever. And because like they're so similar in some ways but so different, like they were, for example, they're all founded by people who were very involved in Ethereum early on, right? So that creates a lot more rift and a lot more like things, I think, overall. So I definitely can see that sometimes when it comes to like protocols competing, right? But I think in at least on Fractal, I feel like the competition is more like 1 + 1 = 3, or 1 + 1 + 1 = 10, right? Where I think this competition actually trades ideas across, right? Even when we're building products, like for example, when we launched Pizza Swap initially on Bitcoin mainnet, and then we launched that on Fractal. I think over time we were able to like, because of like I think the ask from a lot of people, we were able to sort of like at least hear it very, very deeply and really try to improve the user experience, right? One example, for example, for Pizza Swap on Fractal that we've realized, is that people still are not very comfortable on understanding these like deposit into module side of things. So we are, I think we will share more details about that, but essentially we're working to improve that experience where, to the user, they don't have to really think about this deposit into module, withdraw from module kind of situation, a lot more, seamless from that perspective. So that's something that we're working on still. And then for the cat market on the Uniset product side of things, if you notice, it's actually the first product, user experience that Uniset, the Uniset team has built that actually has this like order book like feel, with like the charts and also like this like sort of like order book like feel. It was definitely a challenge for us to get used to that, right? Because it's a new way of like designing the user experience and so on, and we really don't know how users are going to react to that, right? So sometimes I think we also don't really know better as developers and engineers. We just try to essentially put our work out there, let the community tell us what makes sense, do some best guesses, and then based on the data and also the feedback, and stuff, then we can readjust accordingly, right? I think at least on a product surface, we're able to do so. I think when we're designing like an ecosystem or like a protocol like Fractal, it's a lot harder, right? Like every decision, you can't really do like very iterative like engineering decisions on that. So I think that's why if you notice like going forward, you will see that sometimes we'll adjust the roadmap, a little bit more on the, especially on the product side of things, it's easier for us to make those adjustments. But on the protocol side of things, we really want to make sure that it's a very, very stable base where and we respect everyone is building on, like Fractal, to make sure it's a stable and nice and awesome environment for everyone.
Yeah, 100%. And I love, I was actually messing with the cat market just today, and I bought a couple cat, getting ready for the cat 721 lock tomorrow to get the first ever cat 71. So I'm looking forward to that. So I went on there, I pulled some cat for different wallets. I definitely love that experience. But Pizza Swap, I mean, obviously, the deposit stuff, but I did read an article that you guys did say that that's eventually going to be a feature that potentially gets moved away. But with Pizza Swap, I was afraid to try it because of kind of like PTSD of Bitcoin. When we put our stuff in the first time, you weren't getting them back out, right? Obviously, that was potentially, it's going to be incentivized, so that's not really a big deal anymore. But with Pizza Swap originally, it was hard to play because it was like, you got me once, you're not going to get me again, right? So, but now everything seems to be amazing with the withdrawals. I'm somebody who really likes to dig in and really be a user. So I withdrew right away as soon as I found out. Oh, this is amazing. Went in harder, went out harder. So I'm definitely having fun with it. Cat 20 market, definitely something to try. It gives you that Magic Eden feel of trading runes, but it's a little different because you don't need to kind of break down your UTXOs. It's actually beneficial to go the other way with your UTXOs and kind of lock them all in together. I'm just curious, like, what is your favorite thing to do? Are you a user? Do you like to play with these things?
Yeah, for sure. I think like I have to use the products. Like I think like like when we're doing beta testing for many of these products, like I'm the most active person in the team. Just I think maybe because like, and I think among members in the team, like Lorenzo and myself, we're both very product driven people, and myself, right? Because I've built like wallets before. I've for the majority of my career, right, in crypto. So I'm very into like the pixels and everything that is like moves essentially on the screen, right? And everything that's displayed, I'm like, okay, let me figure out what this is, let me see how it is. So I would say I'm one of the more active users on these products. Usually before we launch and after we launch, it's just a lot harder to keep up with what's happening because the community will like have all kinds of questions and stuff, and they kind of consolidate that and with like specific team members doing that and so on. So I get a lot less involved in the weeds of things once it's launched. But trust me, before it launches, I'm the most active user. And this is really how it is, right? So you dogfood yourself and you're like, all right, these are the pain points and stuff. And using my, I putting on my DGen hat or putting my retail hat or putting my institutional hat. I put on multiple hats when I'm doing my testing. And I'm like, okay, how would this person feel if I were this person, right? It's almost like you have this like split personality of sorts, right? It's like, we are doing testing. You're like, I need to be person A, person B, person C, person D at the same time, and explain what I'm seeing in the user experience to how we can improve this to the team, right? So that's kind of an awesome experience, and I really do enjoy that. Want to do more of that in the future.
That's awesome.
So as of right now, the main applications that are being used on Fractal are, the Unisat platform, right? With either Pizza Swap and then the Cat 20 market. But we have seen kind of like the ecosystem of other builders. So when do you feel like that ecosystem will start to thrive? Those builders will start to thrive and have their dApps kind of showcased?
Yeah, I think overall, I feel like the Fractal ecosystem is still very early, right? It reminds me of coming to crypto very early on back in 2017 when, there was just a lot of things that were like quite janky, right? For that matter. And I think we're very guilty of that ourselves, right? So it's one of those things where I think right now, if you take a snapshot of where Fractal is, we're probably at the lowest point in terms of the user experience of the ecosystem. Right, maybe a month ago we thought that when we first launched that was a low point, but I think now we feel like every day feels like we're day zero in some ways. And I think like if you look at the ecosystem, right, it's like actually quite it's actually quite thriving right now from a product perspective. I know I'm being extra critical because we are also building in this ecosystem, so I feel like I have a lot like of demands of what we want to showcase to the community as well. But overall, like right now, I think if you look at a few things, right? One is the mining category. I think that I mentioned earlier. I think the support for the mining pools for miners who want to mine Fractal and so on is very, very good now, right? There's a lot of like education tutorials. There's a lot of information out there. I think they are getting a good information. And I think a lot of like the top ones have been in essence asked by the community when they're supporting Fractal and so on. So that's been good, right? We've seen a lot of tooling and product surface over there. I think on the creator side of things, I think if you're minting, for example, BRC20s, runes, or Cat 20 on Fractal, I think there's some tooling right now, and that has been developed, right? It was a lot better. It is a lot better now than it was a while ago. But candidly speaking, there's still a lot more that can be done, right? I think like right now, generative artists or other kind of like, creators, I think they want more advanced tooling, right? They want easier time. And those are the things that we can still improve so much on. And then on the wallet support and stuff, yeah, we definitely have like, for example, some, wallet support with like Unisat, OKX wallet, and so on. And those are really good, I think, overall. But it can be more can be done, right? In terms of like more wallets can support Fractal as well. There's gonna be more, for example, like liquidity venues and so on that can support Fractal. And those are the things that all users have always been asking. So those are the things that can definitely improve on. And then overall, I think like what people can do on on Fractal is also very important, right? Like for example, Shizzy and Yagobi, you guys mentioned that you try the cat market, you've tried the pizza swap product, and so on, and many others, right? I think that when you're trying these products, I think you're already interacting on Fractal because you're transferring assets and so on. And then once you do those things as well, ideally speaking, you also want to be able to try other things, right? For example, if you're on some other ecosystem like Ethereum and so on, you can do, for example, some social stuff, prediction markets, all that kind of stuff. There's a little bit more interesting. It's a little bit out there. And I think we definitely want to see more of that on Fractal itself, beyond asset transfers, right? And not to say that asset transfers is not great, but it's one of those things where you want also to have a more vibrant use of the block space overall. So I think that's kind of the things that are, I would say I personally am excited by. And if you look at, I think, the themes of how we have supported the community with the retroactive Fractal grants as well, you see that for the first, like season 0. Of course, in programming, you start with 0, right? You don't start with 1. So for season 0, you notice that it's actually a lot more like ecosystem infrastructure kind of projects. And then for season 1, you notice like a theme where it's like trending more towards like utility of the assets itself, asset transfers and so on, like marketplaces, inscription services, wallets, and so on. So I think that is kind of like a trend that we're seeing. And then hopefully, and I'm not going to, of course, like, crystal ball gaze this, but I would think that retroactively speaking for season 2, there'll probably be a lot more other use cases and projects beyond this, right? Because I think that the ecosystem is maturing like week on week, month on month. And I think that's kind of at least what I'm observing right now.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing some dApps being built right now. And we got Sats Pump Fun, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch behind the scenes that we haven't even heard about yet. I have a question about like kind of like the miners. It seems like when Fractal came out, it was super hyped, right? And the price. I know you don't want to talk about price, and not many people do, but price went up, and it seems like the miners have been taking profits very quickly. Was this something you guys were anticipating? Is something you guys were kind of like looking and saying, yeah, that's probably going to happen?
Yeah, I think when it comes to the market participants, right? I think if you observe proof of work chains in general, have it a little bit tough because I think the community needs some time to develop consensus around why should they be sort of like essentially holding an asset for a long term, right? If you notice, even on Bitcoin, let's say if you trace back Bitcoin to when they first launched, earlier days, even before the person actually used, on Pizza Day, for example, right? This person used Bitcoin to buy pizza, right? Even leading up to that point, I think people didn't really, in the Bitcoin community, even knew what Bitcoin was. Also, like, why should I hold it, right? Let me just spend it. And I think that's great, right? Spending Bitcoin is actually a good way. I think overall, with Fractal at least, and also with the with proof of work networks, I think spending the UTXOs is really not a bad thing. I think a lot of people have this like stigma because of now the consensus that we've developed around Bitcoin, where we're like, hey, it should be a store of value and so on. Why are you selling, right? I think in fact, when you're swapping this for something else and so on, when you're going in and out, I think you're creating essentially more transactions in the ecosystem. You're creating more value. You're also using it meaningfully, right? And I think for the mining community, for example, any stakeholder, if you're selling for another asset and you're able to do so, I think that's great, right? I think what's negative about the ecosystem is actually if you can actually participate and leave at will, right? So I think at least that has been demonstrated. So I know I'm kind of almost like looking at things too positively, but I think that's kind of how you have to do, right? When you're building an ecosystem, sometimes you just have to take on this burden sometimes that, hey, these things happen. People do have different motivations, different interests, and so on. And I think it's a matter of like making sure that the ecosystem broadens as well, right? So one metric that we actually track, it's not so much price, because like that's an output factor, right? I think the input factors that we track really is more important, maybe, which is like how much activity is happening, how much UTXOs are being used, how much active wallets, active holders are there. And I think over the past month or so, we've seen over 1 million active holders, and I think active addresses that have been used about 2 million plus, right? So I think these are good numbers for like a new network like Fractal. So love to see, of course, more wider distribution going forward.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I mean, in the beginning days of Bitcoin, when there was 50 Bitcoin per block, it was getting dumped pretty quickly. The price would never jumped until the first halving really happened. Obviously, with Fractal being using that same software, is there halvings in this as well?
Yes, Fractal has halvings as well. So I think the first halving is probably happening in about 2 years from the mainnet launch. So if you go to like just for those in the audience, if you go to the docs.fractalbitcoin.io docs, you'll see that it's a tokenomics sort of or whatsoever section, and then we actually have this like mining, like a simulation of the mining, halving and so on in there. So it's a little bit, just because like Fractal doesn't have the benefit of time like Bitcoin, which is like started since 2011 or whatsoever until like now. there's definitely this benefit of 10 plus years of its existence that we cannot actually sort of replicate, right, when we are trying to scale Bitcoin natively. So in that sense, definitely the halving cycles are a little bit shorter than that of Bitcoin. And also the emissions, I think, amounts is also a little bit more in the earlier years. So to kind of make up for that, that is a scaling solution that started a lot later.
Amazing. Awesome.
Yeah. One of the questions that Shizzy and I had before, not just with Fractal, but also like another UTXO chain like Bells, right? Is what happens if the price of the coin goes too low and energy cost is too high and for the miners network, right? But could you explain like why miners will continually mine? Is it because of the merge mining? Is that why they'll continue?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think overall, I would just share that I think the mining community and miners are some of the most sophisticated mathematical people in the crypto space because they're essentially able to calculate a lot of the very variable inputs, right? Like electricity, cost of storage, like purchasing these hardwares and so on, and then to output factors, right? Like Bitcoin rewards and so on, difficulty and a competition relative to the market, difficulty, other kind of things, right? And halving and so on, right? So I would say like I don't profess to be a miner, and I'm really not. So, but what I'm hearing, I think, from folks that share ideas and insights with us is that at the end of the day, there's like two factors here that is important, at various price levels, right? One is essentially the difficulty. I think difficulty adjustments is quite important. It's really a marketplace, right? So difficulty adjustments actually sort of compensate for a lot of these other external factors. So it's never absolutely about the price of the asset or the demand of the asset. It's really also about the supply side, which is at the competition and so on, and naturally adjusts actually to find an equilibrium, right? Because I think, if you assume that, they have perfect information and they are competitive individuals or organizations, then you would know that they would essentially optimize their output and input accordingly, right? And then merge mining definitely is helpful to provide additional security. But as you can see from block rewards perspective, only a third on average of blocks go to the merge mining side of things, right? And I think what we have also candidly also realized is that many of the large mining pools and large miners mining Bitcoin, they actually see a lot of these merge mining side of things as additional investment for them, not as much as like an expense that they have to immediately let go of, right? So we've definitely seen that kind of feedback from the community, but of course that's individuals and very anecdotal, right? I don't think right now I have this full data, but I think we'll love to see any researchers or so on look into this particular problem space for the various proof of work networks. Love to collaborate on anything there as well.
Yeah,
awesome.
That was awesome. Yeah. So,
Great
is there anything that you're super excited about going in the future? Is there anything that you're just I can't wait for this day to happen, and maybe you can spill it a little bit if you don't mind?
Yeah. I think honestly, if you look at the roadmap that we publish on build.fractalbitcoin.io, we try to at least project out a little bit in advance for 2 to 3 months with some sort of level of confidence, right? I think if you look in each of the particular lines, you'll see that it's this I would say these difficulties or whatsoever that we have. It's just one of those things where it's if we're not confident, overall, we wouldn't even put it on this roadmap anyway. Because there's honestly so many ideas that you can have, at any given point in time. I'm sure you guys as well, when you're thinking about things, you have so many different ideas for everything to work on, right? So it's one of those things where I think if we put it on the roadmap, we try to at least have some level of confidence. But of course things might slip right along the way. I think I'm definitely a lot more excited about a few things, and if you ask everyone on our team or ecosystem, I think people are excited about different things, right? Some people are more excited about, for example, new standards. I think for me, I'm excited about just more creators, awesome creative stuff coming on Fractal. That's one, right? The second thing I think that I'm excited about is just really a better developer experience. Right now, I think when I talk to developers about them building on Bitcoin or Fractal, many times people ask me why or how or what can I do, right? There's a lot of these questions that essentially tells me that they have not done this before or they don't even know where to start, right? So I think we will look to solve that, and hopefully that will be a very, very different situation in a couple of months. Then I think the third thing that I'm personally excited about also is just overall where the sort of like, I think to Yagobi's earlier question, right, where the community consensus and stuff will drive around in the Bitcoin community, right? I think right now the Bitcoin community is still a little bit fragmented from opinions, from views, and so on. And I think over time you will see some of those things converge, and some of those kind of things play out. So I'm excited to see what the Fractal community also converge upon. That they really are excited about, right? And I definitely do think that gaming experiences and so on is also like pretty awesome, and we'd love to see some of that happen. I think the Uniworlds team, I think just announced something yesterday where they were like, hey, like we are making some changes. We want to like shape more of the community. We're building more things, and we also saw like teams like Ordinals do some implementations on Fractal as well. We've seen like, for example, the Starkway and the Bitcoin Wildlife team deploy like a circle plug verifier on Fractal. So those are the things that I think like I'd love to see more of, like just developers building things that are not possible otherwise without Fractal, and hopefully we make a small mark in history of Bitcoin overall. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely amazing, man. This was an amazing interview. I learned so much, and I can't wait for a part 2 when you guys have more updates and really digging into that. But I kind of want to give you the stage, talk to our community, kind of our thank you to you. But the stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Shizzy and Yagobi. I think overall, like I'm really excited and happy to be part of this like Ordinals community and Bitcoin sort of builder community and creator community. I think overall, like when I first discovered Ordinal theory previously and many of these other sort of like projects that were built, I had a lot of questions about where this would end up. And I think honestly, I wouldn't have expected 1.5 years later, 2 years later, that this community would be thriving in this way, right? And I think you always like in some ways, I think when we are building in Bitcoin and crypto, you always find yourself in moments of self-doubt and like doubt about like where things are going. And I think really nice that the energy of the builders in a room overall has been able to push this forward, right? So I think I definitely want to see this more on Fractal and definitely take a lot of my learnings and failures in the past to try to essentially make Fractal like a better ecosystem overall, right? So if there's anything, I think we are, as a team, we're very open, right? Even though sometimes we don't really know, we need to spend time building products and so on as well, and like shipping ideas and just like researching ideas as well. So we may not be super responsive, but I think we are working on that right now, right? Whether it comes to like, for example, to the spaces, we're hosting one, I think on every Friday. We try to host something every Friday. I think it's Asia time, which is like Thursday, sort of Thursday PT. We try to host one, every week to try to communicate more with the community. And we also have this like Fractal podcast initiative, inspired by all these awesome podcast hosts like yourself in the space, to also like share a little bit more. And I think nothing is better than like sometimes diving into an interview with person. I personally really enjoy that. So if any builder wants to just talk about Fractal, talk about what they're building on Bitcoin, please reach out to us on that as well. I'd love to have them. I think I'm going to record my 7th episode soon, even though we only published 2 right now. So it's coming along. Yeah, and then and in terms of content, right, and stuff, as you can probably see, by the time this like podcast goes live, we would have like published the Halloween game, a Halloween puzzle hunt for Fractal, right? And we're also like trying to flex a bit of creativity here. Hope the community enjoys it. It's a little story about cat and bat. And I won't spoil too much, but essentially you're going to use the puzzle and go through the challenges to essentially solve something, right? And if it's successful, I think hopefully it sets a good canvas for more like games and ideas and puzzle hunts in the future. Just keep things more enjoyable and fun. So yeah, that's really it. I think overall honestly, the Bitcoin space can be sometimes a little bit dry and boring. And I think at least with Ordinals, with Fractal, with all these other things that's happening, we're making things more fun, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
man,
100%. I agree with you.
Bull run. Yeah, man. With this upcoming bull run, man, who knows what could happen, right? How many builders kind of pour in? It's gonna be very exciting, man. Thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for building what you're building. You could have took the easy route, you know what I mean? Stayed at Coinbase or something else, but no, you chose the hard route. You chose to build on Bitcoin, and it's not easy.
Yeah. Likewise to everyone building the ecosystem. There's many times when we have like the easy path, right? But let's just try to do some difficult, challenging things and hopefully be rewarded and happy about what we have done. Yeah.
100%. 100%. All right, Spencer. Well, it was an amazing interview. And of course, you're always welcome back to Ordinal Revolution, and we can't wait for part 2 of the next discussion.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
See you, bye.
Right. Take it easy.
Well, absolutely amazing. Another great episode. So I kind of mad at myself for calling Fractal a fork all this time, because I had the same mindset as that, but it's not, because a fork it kind of splits off, and you get the Bitcoin on this side and you get the Bitcoin on this side, very similar to Bitcoin Cash and BSV, but it's not. It started from the beginning, and it's crazy. It took me this long to kind of get that understanding.
Yeah. I think it's more about the intention, right? The intention of the
Yeah.
creation. It's the intent is to help scale Bitcoin, right? Versus being like a competitor of it, kind of like BSV and like you said, Bitcoin Cash. So I learned a ton too during that interview just now, and I'm just excited about the future of the ecosystem. So I was one of those that was sleeping on Pizza Swap, but now I find myself in there, and I'm trying to get more FB with my glizzy. But it's definitely fun. And like I said, I can't wait to see what else comes of the whole Fractal experiment. So
100%.
we really do appreciate you guys watching us and supporting us. If you do have some extra time, please check out our partners as they support us as well. BetBTC is the premier predictions market in the Bitcoin ecosystem. They utilize ICP and Bitcoin technology for you guys to be able to use your Bitcoin wallets and place bets on their platform. They're going to have amazing features for like you to create your own markets and be able to earn from creating your own markets, and also bet with friends is coming as well with the social-fi aspect of it. So check out BetBTC, guys. And then BitPerp is a perpetual leverage DEX in the Bitcoin ecosystem. They are live right now with their paper trading competition. Shizzy and I are competing against each other. He's somehow beating me. I don't know. I think he's using some maneuvers here, but it is fun. The paper trading competition is going to last about 4 to 5 weeks. The top prize is 100,000 BTP, guys. That is a lot of dough. So participate, and if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll try to guide you guys through it. And then also Ordinal Hive, they are an aggregator ordinal marketplace for Bitcoin layer 1 and layer 2 as they've scaled out to Merlin. They're going to provide you guys with the cheapest ordinals in the entire ecosystem, guys. So check those guys out. They also have awesome analytics. So if you're a trader and you like to use analytics to kind of give you a little bit of an edge, you can use Ordinal Hive. You can visit them at beta.ordinalhive.io to utilize either the Bitcoin layer 1 or the Merlin layer 2 scaled version of their platform. And then Foxy, they are building in the Tap ecosystem. Everything right now, Tap is hot. It's the conversation, guys. And so they are building the Bitverse, which is kind of like a metaverse in the Tap ecosystem, as well as the Clan Wars first-person shooter game. Ordinal Revolution has a collab with them. We are going to release some more information on that very, very shortly, I promise, guys. So just be a little bit more patient with us, because it's going to be worth it, I promise you. They also have their bit miners. I believe they might have a couple left. You might be able to still mint on mScribe. But if you end up getting the most rare version, which is Cosmic, you can actually mint Tap tokens right now. And I think they're going for around $6. So it's pretty crazy. They are talking about utilizing or integrating USDT Solana as well for that top tier version. But also some of the more rare bit miners will also earn some amazing assets as well. So just keep yourself updated with that. And also Fluid tokens, guys, one of our strong partners that came over from the Cardano ecosystem. They are experienced UTX devs. That's why they were the first to create a staking environment on Bitcoin layer 1. They're adding TVL to Bitcoin layer 1, guys. We have never had this before, not like this. And so Shizzy and I were fortunate enough to participate in the Billy Cats staking vault. We did well, and there's other staking vaults as well. Like you could earn Dog, Go to the Moon, and I think Omen opened one as well, maybe 2. But guys, if you are a builder or you're a founder and you have an ordinal collection or runes that you want your holders and communities to benefit by staking and earning, please reach out to Raul, the CTO of Fluid Tokens, or reach out to us. We'll get you connected. And lastly, but not least, Merlin Chain, guys. Merlin Chain is the #1 scaling solution for Bitcoin native L1 assets and protocols. So if you're a builder in Bitcoin's native layer and you want to scale your protocol a bit more to make it more flexible, faster, a better user experience, reach out to Merlin Chain. They have amazing builder grants, great builder support. We've experienced it with some of our other partners firsthand. So reach out to those guys. They'll definitely get you hooked up. And thank you so much for checking out our partners.
Yeah, man. And if you guys wouldn't mind checking out ordinalrevolution.com, we have some of the best articles dating all the way back to last year. If you know someone entering the space, please send them our website. We really feel like it can help them start and get caught up to where we're at today. And if you guys need a VPN, we have NordVPN 70% off coupon in here. Do not travel the web without a VPN. Privacy is a right you have. So all you have to do is go to our website here, click this link, and that'll take you to the 70% off coupon. If you guys are going to Bitcoin 2025 Las Vegas, me and Yagobi will both be there. It's going to be exciting, but do not wait till next year to buy. Yes, it's in May, but the closer we get to that May, the higher they go. For example, last year, a WOW pass was 3,000. By the time the conference came, it was 30,000. So definitely get your pass today. And if you guys are looking for some merch, we have some of the best merch in all of crypto, not just ordinals. Check out our store here, and that'll take you to our Shopify, and you guys can kind of go from here and check out everything. Just go to the view all, and we have so much more than what is on here. So definitely check out all of our merch, and we really appreciate you guys. And guys, we are live Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, and 3 p.m. UTC. Check us out all week, guys. We really appreciate you. And until tomorrow, peace.